Izuku Midoriya, also known as Deku, is the main protagonist of the My Hero Academia manga and anime series. Even though Izuku was born quirkless, he manages to catch the attention of the legendary hero All Might, due to his innate heroism and a strong sense of justice, and has since become his close pupil, as well as a student in Class 1A at UA High School. All Might passed on his transferable quirk to Izuku, making him the 9th and current holder of One for All. Following the Paranormal Liberation War, with Tamura Shigaraki and All for One actively targeting Izuku for his quirk, he decided to leave UA before finishing his first year to keep his classmates out of harm's way. After encouragement and support from his friends, he later returns to the school and leads the heroes against the villains in one final, desperate battle to save the world. Izuku was somewhat short for his age. His round face is framed by a short mess of fluffy dark green hair which sticks up at odd angles around his head, casting noticeably dark shadows onto itself. His eyes are large and somewhat circular, their iris is the same green color as his hair, which at times is very watery, and is usually stretched quite wide, giving him an innocent, energized appearance. He has a set of 4 symmetrical freckles in diamond formations, one on each cheek. Though he was initially very skinny, Izuku has gained toned muscles after his 10 months of extensive training with All Might, and as the series progresses, these are shown to become more developed and defined as he gradually grows stronger. After his battle against Shito Todoroki, the fingers on his right hand became slightly deformed, and his hand shows visible scarring. His right arm was further damaged after his intense fight with Muscular, leaving many more scars. Following his recovery after the previously mentioned fight, Izuku wears a black compression sleeve on the upper portion of his right arm to support the heavy damage it sustained. It is partially visible when he wears short sleeves. During his time in junior high school, he wore a plain black Gakuran uniform with yellow buttons, accompanied by white sneakers. While at home, he wears a green jinbei over a white shirt and gray sweatpants. At UA, he wears the standard male uniform, a light gray blazer with dark turquoise trimmings over a white dress shirt and dress pants, along with the red tie which he doesn't do up properly, leaving it much shorter than how it should be. Instead of the plain brown shoes worn by the majority of the student body, he wears his signature pair of red high tops with white soles and black laces. Izuku's first hero costume, known as Costume Alpha, was a green full-body jumpsuit with a red belt, elbow pads, knee pads, and gloves, along with his signature red boots. He also wears a mask with long hair-like protrusions that resemble All Might's haircut, and a respirator with a makeshift smile on it that also reflects that of said hero. The costume was severely damaged as a result of his first battle against Katsuki Bakugo and had to be repaired, so during the USJ arc and My Hero Academia, SAFE, during rescue training, Izuku had to wear the UA gym uniform. This attire consists of a dark blue high-collared tracksuit with thick white lines over his torso and down his legs, forming the letters U and A, and along with this, a respirator. His second hero costume, known as Costume Beta, has a few changes and now looks sturdier and more combat-ready in appearance. It includes light beige shoulder pads, and its knee pads have been extended to his legs, now reaching up to his thighs. His new gloves are also tinted light beige and are decorated with blue stripes. His respirator is now metal, diamond-shaped, and has 8 holes. Izuku goes without a mask in his second suit, and although the mask is still present, he doesn't wear it much. In terms of its color scheme, it is now a darker shade of green with black outlines instead of white. During Class 1A's week of Ultimate Move training, Izuku had his costume upgraded again to suit his new fighting style, shoot style, by adding iron soles to his red boots to increase the power of his kicks. Arm braces were added, and his knee pads now have yellow bolts fastened into them. They were originally added in his second costume in the manga. He called this collection of upgrades Costume Gamma. Izuku's fourth hero costume, known as Costume Delta, makes some minor alterations from his previous hero costume. Before the UA School Festival, Mai Hatsune creates support gloves to better help him use his powers for long-range attacks. Before the joint training arc, Izuku adds the gloves to his hero costume and uses them in combat. During mission, Humorize, Izuku and his classmates at the Endeavor Agency are given special advanced stealth costumes by the World Heroes Association for their mission at Uthon. Izuku's stealth costume was redesigned based on his Delta costume, consisting of a black suit with teal-green highlights on the lines. Equipped with black iron soles and black boots, this costume also includes 2 silver plates on his shoulders with the letters WHA and 2 straps coming down from his upper body pads with a red button on the left. After the Paranormal Liberation War, his costume was damaged, so he wore Gran Torino's cape, as a memoir of his former mentor and the deceased Nana Shimura. Due to his arm bracers and gloves being destroyed, he wore 4 mid-gauntlets to support his arms and legs, as well as the old gloves from his Beta costume. In addition, Izuku wore his mask much more frequently to conceal his identity. Interestingly, his wearing the mask now casts shadows over his eyes, which causes only his green eyes to be visible. This appealing feature is very similar to All Might's look, who has his blue eyes shine through the shadows. This is Izuku's 5th hero costume, known as Costume Epsilon. Following his fight with Lady Nagant, Izuku's left arm mid-gauntlet is partially destroyed, leaving it practically useless. After the explosion at All for One's mansion in Bori Woods, Izuku gains an overall monstrous appearance that is stained in blood and filth. His costume, cape, and gloves become more damaged and torn. His respirator appears to have gathered rust and chipped edges, and his iron soles become crooked like talons. In addition to his monstrous appearance, Izuku also constantly sprouts up to 6 black whip tendrils from his back, which Sarah commented was what kept scaring civilians. After finally recovering and returning to UA, Izuku temporarily wore his UA gym uniform, before his costume Epsilon was eventually rebuilt, accompanied by a new pair of Air Force gloves attached to makeshift mid-gauntlets created by Might, alongside Gran Torino's cape formed as a scarf. The costume has a darker green color, gold outlines instead of black, and forgoes the cowl altogether. This serves as Izuku's 6th hero costume, known as Costume Zeta. Izuku was a very timid, reserved, and polite boy, frequently overreacting to abnormal situations with exaggerated expressions. Due to years of being looked down on by Katsuki for lacking a quirk, he is initially portrayed as insecure, tearful, vulnerable, and non-expressive. These traits are especially present around Katsuki, who also constantly harangued him for his aspirations to become a hero. However, after being accepted into UA, making new friends, and facing Katsuki during the battle trial arc, Izuku gradually matures into a more confident and brave person who's always eager to prove his worth as a hero, eventually developing strong leadership skills, which combined with his passion and strategic abilities, have turned him into a central figure within Class 1A alongside Katsuki. Izuku was a quite diligent and strong-willed student, being extremely, and sometimes scarily, enthusiastic about topics related to heroes. His dream drives him to write down notes about everything he learns regarding heroes' quirks and fighting capabilities. Thanks to this practice, Izuku has developed a great analytical mind and can form complex battle plans in a few seconds, factoring in the best ways he can utilize the quirks of allies and enemies alike for his advantage. Izuku externalizes his observations through endless mumbling, a habit that annoys or creeps out his peers. Izuku often writes down his observations in a variety of notebooks he titles Hero Analysis for the Future, checking on them regularly during school activities or at night. Izuku was caring and emotional, never hesitating to help or rescue someone in danger, even if he knows that he might not be strong or qualified enough to do it. Often, he does this on instinct, taking a more careless approach than the usual overthinking he goes through and putting himself in peril to protect someone. Izuku putting others' lives above his own can go to the extreme, to the point where he has little to no self-preservation. Katsuki speculates that the bullying Izuku received for being quirkless made him internalize that his life has less worth. Izuku will routinely break his arms for the sake of others, even if it's not completely necessary, such as demanding Shito unlock his full potential by using his fire side. This can make Izuku somewhat short-sighted, as he continued to break his arms, despite warnings he could permanently paralyze them and cut his hero career short. Eventually, Izuku listened, adapting his battle style to not put so much strain on his body. Though when he's in a particularly tight situation, he'll pull back on old habits. Izuku was known to help or lecture people with personal and emotional problems, regardless if it's his business or not, claiming that a hero should meddle in other people's lives. This audacious spirit, while initially viewed as perplexing or even insane by others, is also recognized by many, and has earned him the loyalty, gratitude, and respect of characters that were previously antagonistic towards him, such as Tenya Ida, Shito, Hitoshi Shinso, Kota Izumi, Tsurunaita, and even the hero killer, Stain. He has a strong fascination with heroes and is shown well-versed in their history, sometimes even surprising the heroes themselves with his vast knowledge. He is prone to geeking out and rambling on about the heroes he meets, often bringing up their history and accomplishments, while also being eager to share this knowledge with others. Of all heroes, the symbol of peace, All Might, has impacted and modeled Izuku's life the most. Many of Izuku's decisions and actions result from his desire to become a pro-hero similar to All Might, and thus he has a great devotion to him. Izuku is an avid collector of All Might merchandise, has knowledge of his several feats, no matter how minor, and emulates many of his traits. Having inherited his quirk, one of Izuku's current priorities is to be able to live up to his idol's legacy, as he is always looking for ways to improve his usage of One for All, being aware of the immense pressure that comes with succeeding the greatest hero of all time. The unwavering trust and approval Izuku receives from All Might has been vital to his development as a hero, especially when feelings of self-doubt and unworthiness plague his mind. Izuku appears to have a more brash and abrasive side to him, which typically shows up when he finds himself in combat. This side of him makes him act more like Katsuki, being rather loud and unwavering, and also with a strong drive towards victory. He claims that this is because he sees Katsuki as the embodiment of what someone who strives for victory should be. He has also admitted that he doesn't like this side of him very much and tends to keep it in check. He does, however, find himself giving into this almost feral rage when in dire situations and faced against opponents who had brutally hurt people he cares for, like in his battles against Overhaul and Tamura. Izuku also possesses an empathetic side and has developed a desire to want to understand the villains he has faced, and potentially save them from themselves. While initially believing Tamura to be a madman who just wants to meaninglessly hurt others, after learning about his tragic history and sensing the pain in his heart through their connection between One for All and All for One, this reinvigorates his belief that a great hero is someone who saves others, not kills, and because of this, desires to learn how they became villains and see if there is any way to prevent a fight. While he is not Nitel de Macron V in this ideology and will resort to violence if there is no other option, like during his second fight with Muscular, he truly wishes to reach out and help villains recover and reform themselves, even giving Kaichizaki, whom he was still bitter towards, the chance to save his boss should he make amends with Eri. At the same time, Izuku desires to save Tamura from his life of villainy and pain, even when such a notion feels unlikely and is deemed pretentious by others, showcasing his great sense of humanity. Following the conclusion of the Paranormal Liberation War, Izuku had begun to drastically change his behavior. After suffering from the trauma brought on by the war, seeing countless innocent people have their lives ruined by society, having All for One relentlessly target him for his quirk, and bearing the responsibility of protecting his friends, Izuku became more cold and distant towards others. When All for One vowed to break him both physically and mentally, he became increasingly paranoid about how much harm he will bring to those who are around him. The overwhelming stress and burden resulted in him rushing into fights and leaving behind All Might and the other heroes looking after him so that no one else will get hurt. His disregard for his well-being becomes the worst it ever has been as well, neglecting to look after his basic needs like sleeping and eating. This increasingly driven, serious side of him has even caused civilians to note that he doesn't look like a hero. After his friends from UA get through to him and take him back in, these traits seem to have diminished, with him now being determined in stopping all for one alongside his friends, teachers, and allies. Overall abilities: Izuku's greatest asset before receiving his quirk was his vast knowledge of fundamental hero skills and tactics. Izuku studied pro heroes for years and can apply that knowledge during crises in a practical manner. His immense bravery and desire to become a hero were also important factors in giving him the mentality to protect others. Before gaining his quirk from All Might, he took on the sludge villain and rescued Katsuki because of his boldness and application of heroic skills, something that deeply impressed the #1 hero. Upon training with All Might, Izuku inherited One for All from him and was granted the ability to harness a stockpile of powerful energy. He can move faster than the eye can see and take down an enormous villain bot in a single punch, but the physical backlash at the time prevented Izuku from being able to fight properly or compete with his peers on an even playing field. Even so, he still possessed impressive physical durability, and his drive allowed him to withstand the drawbacks of One for All for the most part. Despite the intense drawbacks of One for All, Izuku's wits provide him with ways to use One for All that are still effective in battle. He almost retains his ability to act instinctively based on his notes and possesses basic hand-to-hand combat knowledge. By applying those correctly, Izuku can fight toe-to-toe with even the strongest students of Class 1A, such as Katsuki and Shito. Under the tutelage of Gran Torino, Izuku acquired more control over One for All, leading to the creation of One for All, Full Cowl, a technique that would eventually become a key component of his fighting style. With Izuku gaining greatly enhanced maneuverability, strength, and a significant reduction in the physical backlash created when using his quirk uncontrollably, he was able to drastically improve his overall fighting capabilities. His newly attained abilities garnered praise from Gran Torino, who noted that Izuku was on a higher level than he was compared to the sports festival. This specific improvement enabled Izuku to compete more closely with his classmates in the physical aspects of the hero course and even allows him to fight properly against top villains like the hero killer, Stain, who had single-handedly bested various pro heroes. As Izuku's mastery over his quirk improves, so do his practical skills. Also, when his skills and experience increase, so does his confidence, which is said to be a source of inspiration to his classmates as well. His body, however, remains relatively vulnerable to One for All's drawbacks, which gives Izuku a disadvantage against enemies like Muscular or Overhaul, whose quirks were proven to be too powerful against One for All's weaker outputs, forcing scenarios where Izuku had to sacrifice his body to go all out. To protect his own body, particularly his arms, Izuku eventually develops his unique fighting style, diverging himself further from All Might's. Currently, Izuku is acknowledged by his classmates as a strong, reliable, leading figure, with both his strength and intelligence respected equally. However, Izuku's quirk is still an enigma for them, including Izuku himself, which makes him an unpredictable ally for better or worse. As Izuku keeps growing, so does One for All, and with the prospect of having new abilities unlocked in the future, Izuku has to work even harder to fully dominate the quirk that was passed to him. By the time of the Paranormal Liberation War, Izuku's skills have grown exponentially to the point that he can fight alongside exceptional pro heroes such as Eraserhead, Gran Torino, and even the current #1 pro hero, Endeavor. But his biggest feat thus far is holding his own against the Grand Commander of the Liberation Front, Tamura Shigaraki, who is powered by All for One and a modified body with strength comparable to All Might, and forcing the all-powerful villain on the defensive despite the latter easily overpowering the top pro heroes. Following the aftermath of the Paranormal Liberation War, Izuku has displayed even greater mastery over his quirks and showcased the ability to easily outmaneuver his enemies with Black Whip and 45% of One for All, detect danger without gaining sensory overload, prove and wrong by creating a new ultimate move using Smokescreen, and easily alternate between his arsenal of quirks in his fights with Muscular and Lady Nagant. In his fight against Class 1A, Izuku displayed himself to be easily capable of fighting on even terms with some of UA High School's most powerful students and was shown capable of completely dominating them even when severely outnumbered before succumbing to exhaustion and stress. During the final war, it is stated that Izuku was the only one who has a chance at defeating the fully powered Tamura, and in their final encounter, he has achieved equal standing with Tamura in terms of strength and speed despite the latter changing into its final form. Trained muscles. Usage of One for All requires the user to have strong muscles, as One for All is a lot to handle and could cause the user's body to be blown apart if they don't possess the necessary bodily strength. Having been trained by All Might for 10 months to get his body physically ready to inherit One for All, Izuku gained a muscular physique that lets him perform at parameters higher than that of an average student outside the UA Hero course. During the quirk apprehension test, he demonstrated a grip strength of 56 kilograms and the ability to run the 50-meter dash in 7.02 seconds, 15.93 miles per hour / 25.64 kph. Even after these events, Deku diligently trains his muscles every day and becomes physically stronger throughout the series. He has often seen running laps and using dumbbells or grippers to train during his free time. Deku can also be observed doing the air chair exercise during the breaks between classes. Immense stamina. Izuku has shown on many occasions that he is capable of handling large amounts of pain. Such times were mostly side effects of overusing his quirk and frequently led to various broken bones. Izuku can avoid those repercussions by staying within a safe range of One for All power output. Currently, this is around 45%. Should he be forced to output more power, Izuku was still capable of fighting decently even with broken limbs thanks to the effects of adrenaline, but will succumb to exhaustion a while later. Izuku also has to be wary of his arms, which have grown damaged due to his repeated injuries and could eventually stop working altogether if he doesn't restrain himself. After multiple months of hard work and training with the #1 pro hero Endeavor, Izuku has become much sturdier and more resilient when it comes to the drawbacks of his quirk, allowing him to withstand the recoil from 100% attacks without being instantly incapacitated. He has also shown an even greater pain threshold when he managed to endure multiple smash attacks at 100% and attacks from Tamura while still standing. Izuku has shown to even be capable of operating for days on end without eating or sleeping, going across Japan, and fighting multiple villains. Even when severe sleep deprivation and physical exhaustion accumulated, Izuku still fought against powerful villains for nearly a month and made it very difficult for his former classmates to restrain him for a lengthy period before finally collapsing. Immense strength. Even without his quirk, Izuku has shown high levels of physical strength for a person his age. During his training with All Might, who weighs 255 kilograms or 562 pounds, he was shown to be able to lift himself on his back while walking. During the sports festival, he could lift a slab of metal roughly the size of his body and wield it as an effective weapon to cleave a one-point bot in two. When using One for All, his strength further increases to superhuman levels. At 5% he can shatter metal pillars with a single punch. At 8% he can lift steel I-beam one-handed. At 15% he could lift several vehicles in the air with the aid of a black whip. At 30% he can lift a bus full of people one-handed and run fast enough to evade Tamura's DK and restrain the enhanced Tamura with aid from black whip and his anger. During the Tartarus escapees arc, Izuku's strength increases even further and he can now use 45% as his regular output with no backlash. Using 45%, he could defeat a weakened Muscular with a single punch when he was unsuccessful before, casually collapse a building when fighting his classmates, and even managed to break out of Fumikage Tokoyami's Ragnarei Pilkuke, shocking his friends. At 100%, Izuku's strength reaches even the level of All Might. This allows him to commit astonishing feats. He could easily destroy a massive villain bot with a single punch, annihilate a 12-story building, create torrents of wind pressure with a flick of his fingers, and create a massive explosion with a single punch. With the second user's quirk, Gear Shift, and the third user's Fujin combined, he can make his punches even faster and build enough kinetic energy feedback, inflicting catastrophic damage to Tamura during the final war. As each punch breaks the sound barrier, to the point Mirio notices the delayed sound of the punches before it can be heard. This combination increases his strength from his 100% limit to what is described as 120% in power. Immense speed. Izuku possesses great reflexes with and without full cowl. He can react in time to defend himself from Shido's ice, which has been shown to occur in the literal blink of an eye, and can keep up with Katsuki's movements in their first fight. When using full cowl, his reflexes and movement speed elevate to higher levels. At 5% he can keep up with Tanyu's reciprocal burst, which can move faster than the eye can see. At 8% he proved to surpass Katsuki's speed and quickly and easily overwhelmed Hitoshi in combat despite Hitoshi's improvements. At 20% he could outpace Overhaul, and at 30% he can keep up with the enhanced Tamura's speed. At 45% he was capable of keeping up with Lady Nagin's bullet and was even capable of dodging several of her shots, as well as keeping up with Muscular's movements, which he previously could not follow. At 100% his speed rises to levels rivaling or even surpassing that of All Might, which allows him to casually blitz capable villains and move several times faster than the eye can see. During his fight with Overhaul, he could completely outspeed the villain and move fast enough to create after images, and later completely overwhelm him with an instantaneous rush of punches. When fighting against Tamura Shigaraki, he could effortlessly blitz the villain and severely damage his weakened body. Despite him possessing speed rivaling that of All Might and outclassing that of Gran Torino, with his full 100%, Izuku's speed is on par with All Might's in his prime. Izuku overtook an already fired and moving sniper bullet from Lady Nagant. This allowed him to reach and push Overhaul aside, even before the bullet was able to finish the last small part of the entire distance. With this technique, his speed rises to the point where it took the combined effort of Class A just to catch up with him. After Izuku unlocked and mastered the second user of One for All's quirk, Gear Shift, his speed is incredibly enhanced, enabling him to leave the sound of his attacks far behind his movements. His speed has increased so drastically that every punch he makes delays a sound before it can be heard. Tamura stated that even his eyes are completely incapable of keeping up with him at this speed. Immense durability. Izuku has shown the ability to withstand explosions from Katsuki without One for All, and with 5% he's taken building-sized explosions from Katsuki and attacks from Muscular. At 30% of his power, he's withstood blows from the enhanced Tamura, who is said to have power rivaling All Might himself. At 45% he withstood being shot by Lady Nagant and even managed to survive a massive explosion triggered by All for One. Upon facing his classmates, Izuku was capable of withstanding several powerful attacks such as Fumikage's Ragnarate Ildipilkuke, ramming full speed into Shido's heaven-piercing ice wall, and even withstanding a collapsing building with little to no injuries. At 100%, Izuku's durability and endurance rise to extreme levels, making him appear virtually invulnerable to physical trauma. In his fight against Tamura Shigaraki, he could withstand several attacks from the PLF leader and his own quirk's backlash. In his fight against Nine, Izuku proved easily capable of completely nullifying several of the villain's attacks. However, Izuku's durability has shown to depend on the number of injuries he has sustained, with minimal injuries providing the greatest results. Keen intellect. Izuku has proven to be exceptionally intelligent on many occasions, displaying both keen observational and analytical skills as well as sharp intuition and resourcefulness. His grades are among the highest in his class, showing that his one-for-all training rarely interferes with his studying. Izuku's intelligence has probably been a more useful asset to him than One-for-All so far. Izuku is a quick learner, which has helped him figure out most of One-for-All's mechanisms in a short period and work around its limitations. While some of his moves have been directly inspired by All Might, if not outright copied, the majority of Izuku's moves and techniques were all conceived by him during sudden sparks of inspiration, proof of his creativity. Izuku also has extensive knowledge of pro heroes. his classmates, and their quirks, taking notes of them in great detail and his hero analysis for the future. This is the fruit of excellent observational skills coupled with his desire in becoming a hero by learning from the best, meaning that Izuku always has a natural interest in expanding his knowledge further and further. Izuku is an exceptional strategist and tactician. By combining his aforementioned quick learning and knowledge about quirks, Izuku can devise plans that take advantage of his friend's abilities to the fullest. Izuku's calculations have been crucial at several moments of his school life, allowing him to earn victories, such as in the battle trial, escape dangerous situations, such as the USJ incident, and save lives, such as in the Vanguard Action Squad invasion and Kamino incident. Indeed, in his battle with his classmates, he used his knowledge of their powers to his advantage and easily overcame a majority of them, shocking a few of them with his skill. His intelligence is greatly respected by everyone in Class 1A, as many of his peers look up to him for planning and following his strategies to the bottom line. Even Momoyasu, the smartest student in the class, has looked up to Izuku as a reference. Adaptability. Thanks to his analytical abilities, Izuku can replicate the techniques of others. For example, after training with Gran Torino and gaining minor mastery of One for All, Izuku was able to duplicate Katsuki's moves during a training exercise. After training and drawing inspiration from his classmate, Sasui, Izuku has become proficient enough with Black Whip to generate a dark tendril from his tongue, allowing him to replicate her Fry-style combat. After unlocking more assimilated quirks,